Another JW Broadcasting episode is out, and I sit here in my chair and I think to myself, what am I doing? Is any of this worth it? I feel like John Locke in Lost. If you've ever seen the show, he's looking for answers. He wants a sign. I'm crying out to the island. Show me a sign. And I sit here and I contemplate these questions, wondering if the metaphoric bearded man that lives in the symbolic attic of some people's minds really approves of all of this business. And I just wonder, can I just get a sign? Something showing me that it's all worth it.
Listen here, Cream Puff. I ain't got much time.
Are you some kind of time traveling?
Don't worry about it, Fancy Pants. I'm here to get you ready, because the man upstairs, he told me you're nothing but a little bitch.
Hey, you're not supposed to swear in a YouTube intro. It's really bad for the algorithm.
I don't give a Timu teddy bear about your algorithms. Just look at you, shaking in your satin Calvin Klein britches.
Actually, it's MeUndies. They offer superior comfort, honestly.
I don't give a jack about your silky smooth ball sack, so listen up.
Okay.
The man upstairs says you're special. Now, I ain't see it, but he needs you. Now, there's a group of false prophets, men out there that are gonna lead millions of people into the shitter by making false promises of protection and direction. He said you would know what to do, but he gave me a message to tell you.
Okay.
It's
what's it saying?
Make him think, make him smile, and don't forget to run for a mile.
Is that what it really says? That sounds like you made it.
It's all smudge, man. What do you want me to do? I get real sweaty. Just expose these hooligans, okay? Now I gotta get back to my timeline. Satan just got released from the pits of Tartarus, and shit's getting wild.
Well, I guess sometimes you ask and you shall receive. May JW Broadcasting. Let's do this. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are looking at the May JW Broadcasting. It's actually a proper JW Broadcasting episode, so it feels good to be back in the saddle. Quickly before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It really does make a massive difference in getting it out to more people on YouTube and spreading the good word, and I would very much appreciate it. So it takes 1 second and makes a huge difference. With all of that being said, let's hear about how we can prepare for the future.
We know what the future holds. Bible prophecy clearly indicates that we are living in the last days. We understand what events will lead to Armageddon and the arrival of God's new world. However, we do not know the exact events that we'll experience personally. For example, you might wonder, will I experience a natural disaster? And if so, what kind of disaster? How will persecution affect me? Will I end up in prison as I get older? Who will care for me? Have you ever asked yourself similar questions? Has this uncertainty made you anxious or fearful? Such feelings can make it hard to think clearly.
I like to think of the Jehovah's Witnesses as a doctor that gives you the illness before you come in to see him. They want you to be sick, so that way they are the ones that can provide the remedy for you. When he says, have you ever thought about these things? Have you ever thought about what you're going to do during the Great Tribulation when you're persecuted and you're put in prison, or what's going to happen to you? No. No one, and I mean no one who wasn't raised as a Jehovah's Witness or indoctrinated to believe it, goes to bed at night anxious and worried about whether or not when Jesus shows up, whether or not they're in good standing with the Jehovah's Witness organization, whether or not they went out in service that week. No one's thinking about that. You have given people the anxiety. You have given them the reason. You have put it into their brains that this is something that they should worry about. I was trying to explain this to someone who's never been a Jehovah's Witness, and it's a really difficult thing because it sounds unbelievable that you grow up since you are a small child. These things are talked about when you were a child, about being tortured, being persecuted, having bamboo shoot things shoved up your fingernails, and them interrogating you and punching you in the face and beating you like Jesus because they want you to tell where the other elders and brothers and sisters are. And you're going to have to maintain your faith while you endure that persecution. These are things that are taught as a child, and every single Jehovah's Witness grows up expecting this to be a reality, that they will be handled in this way, persecuted in this way, at some point in the very near future. And no one really understands it. No one really believes me because it sounds so absurd. Because it is. It's a really obscene thing to try and put in the head of a child. So I like to think about the organization in this way, where they are getting people sick, and then they are the ones that are like, hey, well, if you follow us, then we got all the solutions for you, which they're about to say.
But these feelings can go away when we realize that we are well prepared. For example, do you remember the feature drama from the 2023 convention, Commit Your Way to Jehovah? It illustrated how following the organization's direction saved lives during times of political unrest. But is there anything else we can do to be fully equipped for tomorrow?
Do you remember that drama? That fake thing that we put out that illustrated a fake reality that's giving you real world anxiety? Well, it really showed in this fictional world how these fictional people followed the direction of the organization. All of this work that goes into making these dramas, and here in just like the first 30 seconds of this JW broadcast, you really get the full sense of why they do it. It's very apparent that all of this is just a fancy way of saying you need to follow the organization no matter what. Because in a fictitious land, in a fictitious war-torn country, people that followed the direction of the organization, they made it out with their lives. If the organization did this on a regular basis, where following their direction had a direct result of people surviving something that they otherwise would not have, they would point to it. They wouldn't need to make the movie. They would just point to the thing. But they can't point to the thing. Or if they try and point to the thing, people will point and laugh at them because it wasn't really because they followed the organization's direction. But there are plenty of examples that you can look at where following the direction of the organization has ruined people's lives. A generation, multiple generations of people have thrown away their entire lives on the promise from the organization that the end will come in your lifetime. Oops, just kidding. It'll come in your lifetime. Oops, we don't really know. So that's the reality of following the organization. So if that's the reality, what can he point to make his point? Look at this movie that we made that vaguely illustrates this point of follow the organization and you'll get life. Now, it would be pretty reasonable to think that the majority of people, even if they are a Jehovah's Witness, would recognize this overarching problem of not really being able to trust the organization because the organization historically has never really been right about anything and has never really protected their people. So the reasonable question to ask is how are people staying in this? Why do people continue to do it? Well, it's because Watchtower does this little trick where I've used this phrase for a long time, but it's the best that I can come up with. They hijack your spirituality and convert that into loyalty to their organization. Here in this next little section, he's going to basically talk about something in the Bible, and he's going to use words and phrases that are so similar to the words and phrases that the organization uses that it kind of blends the idea of organization speak into Bible or God speak.
The brothers and sisters of the first century knew they were living in the last days of the Jewish system of things. Based on Jesus' warning, they expected personal challenges. However, they did not know exactly when and how these events would affect them. It was impossible for them to plan for every possibility. And Peter, who was getting older, may have wondered how he and other elderly ones would be cared for later in life. He may have perceived that aging and declining health could create uncertainty and fear in some. Doesn't that sound a lot like the situation we're in today?
So as Jehovah's Witnesses are getting older, they've witnessed this really bad history of the organization, and it's failed them and disappointed them over and over again. He's going to remind them that, hey, back in Bible times when they were waiting for the end of that system of things, they were getting older. They might have been worried about the same things you are worried about. Insert scripture, boom, you've hijacked someone's spirituality. Now they think, oh, well, it's not the organization. This is just God speaking to me through the organization. It's a very interesting little trick that they try and play, and I always find it fascinating how very early on, when they are giving these talks and preparing them and making their little manuscripts for them, I don't think they're even aware of how they're manipulating people. And I think it's because they're just so used to it. Now he's going to give us the how-to guide, the step-by-step, the how to prepare for the future for dummies, except for it's coming from a dilapidated, delusional dingus here, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. But let's take a look at it.
By being active, you show Jehovah that His kingdom is the most important thing in your life. And Jehovah promises to care for those who put His kingdom first. You are in His protective hands. There is no need to be anxious or fearful. Therefore, being active in the ministry is the first step toward being prepared for tomorrow.
I don't really understand why they continue to talk about the ministry when they've demonstrated through their actions that the door-to-door thing that Jehovah's Witnesses are so well known for, that is such a part of their core identity, the organization has said, yeah, it's not as serious. When they took away the requiring people to report their hours, that is such a fundamental shift and a signal to ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses, in my opinion. It's basically this thing that used to be stressful. Oh, you were always worried about getting enough time, making sure you had enough time. When you were looked at for someone that is going to receive a certain privilege, move your way up the Jehovah's Witness nonsensical bureaucratic ladder, people would look at how many hours. Well, what's his history? What in the last 6 months? Has he averaged at least 12 hours in the ministry? These were real things that were people were evaluating themselves and others. Now you tick a box. I'm good with God. I tick the box. Easy peasy. To me, how I look at the optics of that is that it's a signal to Jehovah's Witnesses that it's not as important. You combine that with the sheer ridiculousness of cart witnessing. Cart witnessing accomplishes absolutely nothing. You stand there, you chop it up with your friends, you go home. You don't talk to anyone. It's not very effective. And ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses know this. They are very familiar that cart witnessing doesn't really do anything. That's another signal at least how I see it, to Jehovah's Witnesses that thing that you were known for, the beating on people's doors, wasn't all that important. And so it's weird to hear them saying, if we want to be prepared for the future and making sure that we're going to be able to stand the test of persecution, and when people are coming at you with the guns and the swords and the persecution, you're going to be ready for it. So it's like they talk out of both sides of their mouth, and I don't understand why they do it. I get that you need to keep people on the hamster wheel. You have to keep them tired and exhausted. I think he even says it in there. What was that clip? I'll play it.
Such feelings can make it hard to think clearly.
Yeah, so he was talking about all of the anxiety and everything that you face, and all of those feelings, they make it hard to think clearly. I think this is just another brick in the wheelbarrow that Jehovah's Witnesses have to push around in their life. It's just another weight on their torture stake that they are carrying around. And he said it right there. These things, it makes it hard to think clearly. And I think that is probably the biggest reason why they continue to say this. But just the sheer, why do I keep saying sheer? It's not sheer. This isn't sheep over here. Just the fact that he talks out of both sides of his mouth, just so willy-nilly, loosey-goosey, really annoys me, not gonna lie. But let's see what he has to say about this second point for being ready for the end of the days of the world. I don't know.
Next, the Apostle Peter tells us to keep our senses completely. This means being balanced in our thinking. Thus, we are able to evaluate matters properly, come to the right conclusions, and make good decisions. Isn't this what we want?
Jehovah's Witnesses talking about having balanced thinking really tickles me. I sat here for about 3 minutes just giggling to myself. I know I play this clip a lot, but I just want to remind people of how Jehovah's Witnesses think, because their thought process is to start with the conclusion and then find anything that supports that and run with it. What he says, we need to find the best answer, the right answer, the correct answer. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They already know what the answer is to almost every single question because it's prescribed. And this type of thinking will always fail you. It's not a good idea to start with the conclusion, this is this way, and then just play Mad Libs with everything. But just notice how this type of thinking, where it will lead you.
But what's the voice of strangers of Satan's world telling us regarding divorce, adultery, and other forms of sexual immorality? And this world's media is very skillful at presenting something bad as good. For example, in a movie, a female character might be portrayed as having a husband who is abusive. You like the woman, and you want her to find happiness. Then a handsome man starts working in her office, and he's so nice to her. There's an attraction between them, and the budding romance is presented as something good. Soft background music makes it hard to consider her course to be bad.
So if you start with marriage is sacred and you can never get a divorce under any circumstances, it leads you to having to have this filthy, disgusting diatribe about the grotesque people in the world that think that a woman who's being abused should leave her husband so she can be happy. Oh my God, what a terrible thing. Oh, it's filthy. They portray it in the movies and the media. The soft music plays and they make you emotional about it. Brother, get a grip. Someone in an abusive relationship needs to get the hell out of there. People deserve to be happy. People deserve to live a satisfying, healthy, productive life. And if you start with the conclusion that, well, marriage or bust. You got to stick with it no matter what. It leads a actual leader of 9 million people around the world to say some dumb stuff like that. You should stay with your abusive partner. I know I use that clip all the time, but it just really hits home this point of how crazy Jehovah's Witnesses are, and you can see the process of how they think and what it leads them to do. And it's really wacky. Now, before we move on to the second point of how we can stay groovy till the time of the end, I want to talk about one more thing as he's talking about having the proper way of thinking. Because he's about to describe just about everything wrong with being a Jehovah's Witness in quick succession. So let's take a peek.
Being loyal to Jehovah and doing what he asks. Is this not what we promised to do when we dedicated our lives to him and got baptized? Yes. And since then, we've made many decisions to follow his directions, which often come through his organization. Some changes were easy. Others were hard, especially when we did not fully understand the direction or agree with it. Can you think of a time when you made a difficult change for Jehovah? Did you later see how following his direction led to good results?
So, in order to make a good decision so you can do well and survive past the Great Tribulation, be ready for persecution, you gotta have the right thinking ability. And what's that, you might ask? Well, I got the answer. Pray and remember that you made a lifelong commitment to following an organization when you were a kid. I'll show them a little picture here. She's praying. She got baptized as a child. Remember that promise you made to God. And how does God speak to you? He doesn't speak to you in a rational email, make logical points, and it's like, oh, I can easily see where he's coming from here. No. He speaks through us. He speaks through this organization. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it makes sense, but none of that matters. It doesn't matter if it appears to your eyeballs, if it's good or bad, makes sense or totally just cattywampus. Doesn't matter. You just have to listen because of that decision you made when you were a freaking child. It is so culty to hear him enthusiastically remind people of how they can make wise choices and how they can not use their reasoning ability, but he's saying, you can use your mind, you can make the correct choices, you can have balanced thinking. Brother, this is the most imbalanced thinking imaginable. You are guiding people to start with a conclusion and to only listen to one source for information and guidance. That is not balanced thinking. Oh, Lord. No wonder when people leave this organization we have so many problems, because when you're taught to think like this, you are in for a very rude awakening in the real world.
When we become anxious about what we might have to endure tomorrow, persecution, disaster, or health issues, don't we feel like we are in a storm? Without hope, we might easily lose our balance.
So this third point is just hope. It's the dangling carrot. Talked about it a lot. We already know what it is. The paradise, that's the hope we have for the future. It'll stabilize us in anything that we go through. Now, let's hear what he has to say about how these different things are going to influence the daily decisions that Jehovah's Witnesses are going to make.
Our daily choices show that we do not belong to this world or seek its protection. We are residents of God's kingdom. Peter reminds us to be different. For instance, we are different because of our view of material things. Materialism, a fleshly desire, has affected people around us, and many would sacrifice everything for material things. For example, many people are overly concerned about their financial future. While it's the course of wisdom to do some planning, excessive worry about material needs later in life may cause some to put undue pressure on children and other family members to pursue a secular career.
So this is an interesting one, because the Jehovah's Witnesses don't do some planning. As an organization, I should say. Ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses, they hardly do any planning at all. But when it comes to their finances, the organization, as of late, has, I think, at least just when I step back and look at it, I mean, what do I know? I'm just some goober. But when I step back and look at the trajectory of the organization, I think they have become aware of what the actual value of their assets are. I think that instead of just seeing it for, wow, we have a bunch of kingdom halls all around the world, I think maybe they've understood, or they've gotten people in positions that have helped them to understand that you can leverage billions of dollars of assets. You can do a lot of funny stuff with that. You can make merry and do a lot of monopoly moves that is going to give you an incredible amount of yearly income. An absolutely insane amount. And again, by the optics, setting up an asset management company, getting an internationally respected person to lead this for you, you know, you might start thinking, well, the next thing they'll do is get a governing body member that knows all about real estate, investing, and asset management. And boy, howdy, that's exactly what they did. My point is they aren't just kind of, sort of, ancillarily thinking about, oh yeah, we got to worry about our finances. We got to take care of it. They seem to be pretty strategic. They seem to be thinking these things out to a certain extent. And for them to be doing that, for them to be setting up an asset management company, so they can basically have just a reoccurring income and they can grow their wealth. They'll be doubling their wealth quite easily every 7 years if they do this properly. And we're talking about doubling an already billions of dollars. They can control an incredible portfolio. I've talked about this a lot before anyway. And yet for an ordinary Jehovah's Witness, they're going to be barely scraping by. And they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, I still have to write that check for $150 to Watchtower. It's someone that's a window cleaner or a plumber or a bus driver is going to have to make a decision whether or not they want to start a retirement fund or fund Watchtower leadership's retirement. And sadly, a lot of them are choosing to fund Watchtower leaders' retirement, even though they don't need it. Not even a little tiny bit. I am fairly confident in saying that every single Jehovah's Witness around the world could stop donating money today, and the organization probably would have very little. It would have very little impact on their overall wealth in the next 10 years. That might sound like a hot take of all hot takes, but that's just how I see it. Anyway, that makes me angry. I don't think that some random Jehovah's Witness with 2 kids that's already doing so much free work for Watchtower should also give financially to them because they're doing it with their free work. Isn't that enough? Stop asking people for money. Stop showing a donation box outside of a freaking refugee camp. Just stop with it already. Yeah, and this is just like the worst advice ever. Just terrible advice that Watchtower gives people. Don't worry about your financial future. Don't be like the world. Be different. We are going into an absolute crisis where the income, the wealth gap in Western societies is going to hit something that I don't think people have seen in a few generations. And when that happens, Watchtower is going to be fine, but Jehovah's Witnesses are not. And it's because of the advice that they are going to get from the organization. So we're going to get into a little story here, a real world example of Jehovah's Witnesses that are taking the organization's advice. It's from people in Hong Kong, and they're going to severely underestimate the drastic housing problem that exists in Hong Kong. Anyway, I won't get into the whole collapsing real estate market in Hong Kong. But anyway, let's just go and take a look at what it looks like when people follow the advice of Watchtower.
Hong Kong is an international city, and it is known for having high property prices. I was a teacher, and as a teacher, I advise my students to study hard and choose the majors that can help them find a job with a higher income and a stable future.
Before I learned the truth, I also hoped that our children could have a better future by getting a good job when they grew up. That way, they could also support us financially.
Being Christian parents in the truth, we didn't want them to neglect their studies in school, but we also wanted them to know about the Bible. Therefore, we started studying the Bible with them and took them to meetings and helped them to preach to others. In order to make it possible for our whole family to pioneer, we needed to simplify our lives. During family worship, we discussed ways to reduce expenses so that everyone in the family was on the same page. I noticed that we did not lack anything and that the whole family could all share the burden of our expenses.
Being different can be challenging. But wasn't it encouraging to see how this couple resisted cultural expectations and pressure? Instead, they agreed with their children's desire to pursue goals in Jehovah's service, and they supported them. Strengthening our friendship with Jehovah is the best preparation for tomorrow. And whether Jehovah ultimately uses children to care for their parents or provides help in another way, Jehovah will stick to his promise to care for us.
So, at the end of the day, people should just be allowed to do whatever makes them happy. If it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg, then I don't really care. Just do what makes you happy. But I just get frustrated with how you can be indoctrinated from infancy, and it will basically affect your whole life. If this is how you teach your kids to live, it begins that sunken cost fallacy that, we talk about so often when it comes to the organization really early on in life. You are getting them invested in being a Jehovah's Witness. They're making their first deposit into that account, and then you're going to teach them to keep making regular deposits into that. And the tax ramifications of withdrawing early are so severe. They're wildly severe because you'll lose everything. Not just 60%. You'll lose everything. So I just can't stand how they portray this almost fantasy of a situation. Oh, here are these people in this economy that is absolutely brutal. I mean, we're talking about like higher home prices by they're like almost 10x what they are in Manhattan per square foot. Last time I checked. It's actual insanity. Goose, okay, you're up or you're down? You're in or you're out? Okay, you're out. And you're not just going to stumble your way through this situation. And yet they're like, oh, well, God provided, Jehovah provided for us. they never actually show how. This is something that I've been working on this video for a while, but I've been thinking about it for a while. I haven't working on it, but just what does having Jehovah's protection mean? Like in a practical, boots on the ground sense. What do those words mean? And it's really an interesting thing to think about, because I kind of suspect it means absolutely nothing. But these are these people's lives, and that's how they lived them. Yeehaw. Let's move on with the broadcast. Next up, we're going to revisit an old series that I haven't seen in a while. At least I don't remember I've seen it in a while. It's Iron Sharpens Iron, where they give some tips about how to preach to people. So let's lock it in.
Have you ever been in the ministry, and just as you're starting a conversation, the individual stops you and says, "I'm not religious"? How did you react? Did you freeze up, unsure of what to say? I know it's happened to me. In this episode of Iron Sharpens Iron, we're going to discuss 3 tips to help us reach the hearts of non-religious people. But what comes to your mind when you hear the word non-religious?
What comes to your mind when you hear boneless, skinless chicken thighs? What kind of question is that?
Be positive. 2, listen with understanding. And 3, share information that addresses their needs.
So the 3 tips for helping someone who might be an atheist is to be positive, listen with understanding, and share information that addresses their needs. I'm a little bit confused as to this advice, but thank goodness Watchtower has given us an actual example of exactly what we can do in these situations. Yes, empathetically humming is the right tactic. I wish I was joking that there was more in these demonstrations, but I'll just play you a little clip so you can see what I'm talking about.
I agree. Believing in God from our heart is very important. If you don't mind, may I ask you why you're not interested in religion?
I used to belong to a religion, and the hypocrisy I saw just completely turned me off.
I gotta be honest, I don't really know what a Jehovah's Witness is supposed to learn here. And I don't really get it. So with that, let's just move on. Now, the JW Broadcasting is known for having a section that's a bit of a tearjerker, gets you emotionally invested, and I gotta be honest, it really stirred my emotions. I was really feeling for this guy. So let's look at the anatomy of becoming a Jehovah's Witness. What is often common is that people are in a very low point in their life. They don't have a lot going on. They've experienced a lot of negativity, abuse, disappointment, abandonment. And when they're at that low, the Jehovah's Witnesses will swoop in and offer them a little bit of hope.
Childhood in a small city of India. My family was very poor. My parents both had the habit of drinking. Often they had fights at home. My father would beat my mother with wood. And sometimes he would beat us too. So me and my siblings, we would run and hide to the outside toilets. And we would wait there until the shouting and fighting would stop. One day, I saw my father. He was full drunk. I was very small, maybe 6-year-old, and I was playing near the house. My uncle came to the house screaming at my father. I ran to see what was happening, but there was nothing I could do. When in front of my own eyes, my father was murdered.
This is horribly sad. this guy's life is not off to a super great start. You can only imagine what type of mental scars that he is going to carry with him throughout his entire life, just from this. But somehow it gets even worse.
Later, I was taken away from my mother to work as a servant. They treated me terribly, with punches and kicks. They even strangled me once. I missed my mother. I felt so alone. My mother was suffering from cancer. I asked them many times that I want to go and see my mother, but they wouldn't let me go. I started crying. I said, I want to go home. But they said, going now will be of no use because your mother has already been dead for 4 days.
Nothing, and I mean nothing, was going right for this poor kid. It's just so incredibly sad, the world that he grows up in. And to think that, I mean, we all know where this story is going, so I guess we'll just see where the story goes and then we'll talk about it.
I cried a lot. I could not see my mother one last time. All of this made me feel so angry inside. I was always fighting, bullying, and stealing. Eventually, I was thrown out of the house. This time, a relative took me in. I noticed her daughter would go somewhere every Sunday, and this made me very curious. So I asked her where she would go, and she said to Bible meetings. Her daughter also told me that a couple would come every Friday to study the Bible with her. She invited me to join her if I wanted. So I decided to sit in on her study. I was impressed with the brothers studying with her. They were so kind. They cared a lot and showed love that was not seen in churches. On one occasion, I found myself running again. But this time, I was running to the Kingdom Hall to see my new family.
And then it's business as usual. You find the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are that family that you're looking for. They basically come in and replace the family that he's lost. Now, this is like one of those weird situations where you're like, is it good that he found the witnesses and at least internally he feels like he's happy and satisfied? Is this just a net positive? Can we not say anything too negative about it? I don't know. I feel like some people need that thing. I'm not a religious person. Anyway, we don't have to go into any of that stuff, but I feel like there are some people out there that through the vast array of different circumstances and challenges that someone might go through, they end up in a situation where they are healthy and happy and satisfied. And I guess you can't be that mad at it considering where he came from and all of the struggles that he had to deal with. It's one of those ones where you're like, well, I guess it's fine. I wish it was something else that was able to get him to that place that he wanted to be so he could live a satisfying life. But it's not the worst thing ever, I suppose. They have another section here that's talking about marriage, but every single time that I go over one of these, I upload it to YouTube and there's a problem because they're using copyrighted music, so I'm not even gonna bother. If you want to check out that section, you can do it on your own time. That's totally fine. This video is already getting pretty lengthy, so let's do everyone's favorite aspect of the JW broadcasting, the real reason we're all here. What's the darn music video about?
So I'm counting every minute and making every minute count. I could take it all for granted, let time just slip away, and forget to show my love for him right now. I could put off till tomorrow what I can do today, but I never want regrets to bring me down. So I'm counting every minute and making every minute count.
You can count every minute, and you can make every minute count. Honestly, it sounds like some nonsense that I would say. Yeah, this one's pretty unremarkable. It's just a family being a family. That's about it. Nothing happens at all. Nothing interesting. So yeah, there you go. The May JW Broadcasting episode. Another one in the bag. And yeah, I guess we'll be in convention time. Blink twice before we know it. With all that being said, thank you if you're still around and you made it this far in the video. Wow. Holy cow. That's impressive. If you haven't dropped a like on the video, I'd very much appreciate it. And stay safe. Winston's hitting my lights. Be kind. And don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. And count your time and make your time count.